poppin', y'all? It's your boy, Staz, the Italian Stallion, aka ESPN Staz, because I'm bringing it to you like a highlight, you feel me? We in Uptown Phoenix right now. I got a special guest on the show today, right here on the definition of active, man. This is AZWay2 Active, you feel me? I got a DJ, I got a producer, crazy talented, I got owner of a record label, and I got Dan G's manager, Megawatts in the building. What it do, bro?
What up, brother? Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. What up, AZ Active? Way too active in the building.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. I think the city needs this because you have a great story. You've done a lot out here with Dan, obviously. I think it's important that the city knows your story. Before we get into everything that you've done out here, you aren't from here. You're from Denver.
303 in the building.
The 303, man. You were born and raised out there. Talk about how it was growing up in Denver, and B, Brock, the basketball player, because that's your real name.
Brock is my real name, a.k.a. Megawatts.
Megawatts.
That's my label, Megawatts Music Group.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Denver. My background is I was a college basketball player. So, I was always a huge hip-hop fan. I think most people that played basketball listen to rap music.
Mm-hmm.
I played in the band growing up. I was a drummer. And I just always had, kind of an infatuation with hip-hop.
Mm-hmm.
From the minute I heard it, I was in love with it. I played ball, and that was, I played sports. I played basketball, football, baseball.
Wow.
Once I got into high school, I focused on basketball.
Mm-hmm.
My older brother played college basketball. He played at UNLV when Jerry Tarkanian was there.
Wow.
My whole family's into sports. My little sister played professional. So we're just an athletic family, very competitive. And then fast forward later in life, me and my brother both got in the music industry. So I was around the early rave scene in Denver. My brother was a huge part of that. That'd be a whole different story, but had tremendous success and was very influential in the dance music world that we know of today.
Okay.
And so we started throwing parties like in a long time ago, underground parties that started to become really huge. So at that time, I was a local rapper, and I used to produce all my own beats. We used to perform at rave parties, and once I stopped playing basketball in college, that's how I got into music. So I started making beats and taught myself how to make beats, and started doing local shows just like every other local rapper. Got to do some pretty big shows. Learned a lot about music production, being on stage in front of thousands of people, learning how to network, all the stuff you do as a young kid coming up. So, fast forward when I moved out here and switched gears, I've been in a lot of positions. Some of these other artists are, so some of the best producers I always say are failed rappers,
Yeah. Was Megawatts your rap name?
No.
What was your rap name?
B-Rock.
B-Rock.
Hell yeah.
Very clever.
If you're from my era, that was my nickname growing up playing ball. So
nice.
And in my old school friends, they call me B-Rock. That's just how it rolls.
Got it. And what college did you play at?
I played at two different colleges. My first year, I played at Lamar Community College. I played JUCO.
Okay.
And then after that, I transferred to Metro State in downtown Denver.
Nice.
So
really cool.
I played 2 years, and after my second year, I just kind of started losing the passion. Somewhere in that time, I'd started making beats, bought a sampler, keyboard, started going to the nightclubs, sneaking in underage. We started throwing parties,
Yeah.
Started, exploring the nightlife. I was a very disciplined athlete, and it was like, you're turning 21.
Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. My brother and I, we kind of were like little celebrities in Denver.
Yeah.
And so we just had a good time. He was doing like the house music side of it, so I was the hip hop guy. So I got to meet a lot of these famous DJs today that are still relevant. I used to pick them up from the airport, drive them to parties. And we always clicked because they were doing one genre, I was doing something different. Every like house DJ was a hip hop DJ at one point in time. So that was kind of, I got to like experience like the life, even though it was like these super cool underground parties, like they were big. And, you got to see the reaction. And then I started making music myself. And then we started playing like the small rooms, and I started building a little local fan base. And so we put together a little group, and we would do some shows, and it was cool. It was like, you know, it was filling like a void, but ultimately, like, I always wanted to be a producer.
Gotcha.
You know, but it was like a way to test music, learn. You know, it's different when you're on stage, and you know, I was fortunate enough to do some pretty big shows, like
what kind of shows?
like I think the biggest show I ever did was like 8,000 people.
Wow.
So, you know, when I see these local rappers saying they're doing it, it's like, I did that a long time ago. I know I've stage dove, you know, like, and they caught me, you know, you know, I did shows with like Too Short, E40, even like the Legends, Run DMC, and stuff like that. So, you know, pretty fun. I got a lot of pretty cool stories, you know. Got high with Jam Master Jay and heard about a rapper named 50 Cent before the world did.
Really?
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. Rest in peace, Jam Master Jay.
Rest in peace, Jam Master Jay.
You know, I've got a lot of cool stories, and have met a lot of really interesting people, and yeah, it just kept inspiring me, and I was just kind of, I just always kept grinding and learning the process and taking knowledge from all these different people, and I never put a time limit on making music, you know, and I knew as a producer, like, age is irrelevant. You know what I mean? Rappers have a shelf life, unfortunately.
Yep.
And so it was like a lot of DJs, producers, engineers and stuff, it takes them a little longer to really find their sound, their style, their, you know, years and years of experimentation. And then, you know, you just find somebody hot, and then you can take all the stuff you've learned and you can kind of pass that on. And, you know, it's like the player that became the coach.
Gotcha.
He's a little bit better coach, you know, because he actually played.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
there we go.
that was my Denver story, you know.
Yeah.
And then I packed up and moved out to AZ about 20 years ago now.
Okay. And you obviously you've had a long you know career in the music industry. We were talking you know before you did some work with Rough Riders. So I was gonna say, how did you get your start in the music industry? But you know, was that the start, or how did you get in these rooms with these you know people that were huge to start off?
Well, we started off throwing rave parties, and my brother was a big rave promoter, and the B rooms would play, like, back then drum and bass was coming up. So all the drum and bass DJs had MCs. So the rave kids that liked hip hop were kind of more drawn towards the drum and bass side, which has kind of come back full circle, which is kind of like dubstep and trap. There was always like the B side of like kind of hip hop kids. And so I started, you know, it was the small rooms, and it'd be like 300 people, 400 people. And everybody was DJs, so there was no rappers, you know? So it was like a perfect fit to start performing. And then I started doing like remixes with these big DJs that were like from the UK. Like I had a couple big drum and bass records where they like remixed my song, and they became real big with like famous UK DJs.
Gotcha.
So that was like my first like DJ rap, Kenny Ken, MC Fearless. Like these guys were legendary underground in the scene, and they were like remixing my songs. And then I had like a small like underground like drum and bass hit. So then I became like, B-Rock was known, you know? So then I started getting booked on the bigger parties. Then they started letting me play like main stage. And, you know, so that's kind of what got me going, you know? And then I'd always been good at networking, you know? I worked in sales as a job, so I knew how to talk to people. And then it was just a chance meeting. I ran into the CEO, Wah, of the Rough Riders. Shout out Wah and D. Those are real dudes, cool as shit. And they invited me down to the studio to play them beats. Wow. And Swiss Beats was there, and he came out to my car. I played him like 20 beats. Really? And they're like, man, you kind of dope. You should come back tomorrow. So I came back tomorrow. DMX was there recording. Wow. I was there the night they recorded Where the Hood At. Really? Yeah, that was down at Chatone in Phoenix. Wow. Yeah, so they started coming out here. They noticed I had some talent. So I just kept sending them beats and networking, and then a couple years later, they came back to town. Hey, Brock, you got some beats? So I'd come down to the studio playing beats. Got to play some beats for Cassidy. Ended up landing like a mixtape song they had a new artist from the West Coast named Cartoon. Okay. He's got a song produced by Scott Storch that was on with DMX. I've heard of him. Yeah, Cartoon was dope. Shout out. And then he unfortunately got sent to the feds, but he was supposed to be like their new big West Coast artist. So I had some, you know, some success, got to be in some pretty cool rooms. I think I did like maybe probably 4 or 5 sessions with DMX.
Wow.
So, and this was at the height of his career.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like, I mean, it's like he's recording the song, the albums come out like a month later and it's like 1 million sold, you know? So it was pretty cool. Just to be around that, knowing, you know, that I had potential to be in those rooms. D really liked what I was doing. He saw a lot of potential in me. And he was like, you got more of a West Coast sound. So he paired me up with his new artists. And unfortunately, I never made one of their big albums. And looking back, you know, you can make excuses. I was supposed to be on the Styles P album. I had this really cool weed song, and then they ended up going with I Want to Get High. With
Gangster and Gentleman.
Yes, I had an opportunity to produce a song on that, and they said my song was too similar to the...
I Get High.
Right. It was the same. It was totally different. It was actually a really dope sample I flipped, and they loved the record. I did some stuff for Gin.
Wow. Gin.
Yeah.
Y'all heard about that. Gin.
So
do your research.
I submitted a bunch of beats for them, and looking back in retrospect, probably the quality wasn't good enough, and I was man enough to like admit it. But it was cool that they kept calling and put me in the room because they knew like I might have something. Like my ideas, they knew I had good ideas, and so that was encouraging, even though it was frustrating. You know, and I realized being in those rooms that I won't name the names, but there was a lot of big producers and they were just begging to get on these albums. You know, at the time I had a job, I'm making like 10, 15 grand a month.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sweating a placement, right?
Yeah.
And so I was there because I was genuine, and these guys were, if they don't land a beat on this album, they can't eat. You know what I mean? And so I realized I didn't want to go that route. It just seemed like a terrible life. You know what I mean? Like they would call me for the Hail Mary song at the very last, like hoping I had this like magical beat to fit the album, like the one-off single, you know, and they did that like 3 different times. I got a call from D one time, calling Brock, I'm gonna give you a shot, blah, blah. I was like, I got the track, I sent it, and they said no, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it was a good experience, but like I was real, like with DMX, you know, they asked me like for features, like, hey, should we put this person on an album? Like Juan D would be like, hey Brock, what you think? Like, and the whole room was full of yes men, and I was like, I remember they asked me one time, should we get Mary J. Blige or Keisha Cole on this song? Yeah. And at the time, this was probably 2000, I guess probably 6, 7, somewhere in that range. And I was like, yo, you got to get Keisha. And DMX was like arguing with me, man, I got to get Mary. And I was like, I'm just the guy that's going to buy your record, but I would rather hear Keisha Cole. Yeah. You know, and because they're like, Brock's a fan. Not only does he hear trying to get on, but he's a fan. That's why we keep asking you back. And I remember telling him, I was like, yo, just do that. You know, like one night he was rapping for like 2 hours straight. You know, every rapper gets drunk and doesn't shut the fuck
DMX.
up, right? Every rapper's the same. Danji does it. Markham's does it. Every rapper I know, they want the aux cord. They want to play you. Like, it don't matter if you're in the room with Little Baby tonight. He's gonna grab the aux. He's gonna play you his next 100 songs. That's just the way rappers are. DMX was exactly the same. And he was rapping for like 2 hours straight. I'm like, I get it, bro. You're good. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you know, like we know you can rap. And he kept going over. He was trying to get in the mood, and it was real cool to see him in relationship with Swiss. Swiss really had X's ear, and he would be like, give him so much direction. And I think people don't realize like how much of X's success with those big records was Swiss telling him, like coaching him. And I remember he dropped this verse, and I was like, yo, that's the one. I finally stood up. I'm like, dude, I've heard you rap for like 2 hours. That's the one. Do that one. He's like, I can't. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't? That's your best verse I heard all night. Like, that's the one I want to buy. And like, you know, everybody's like, who the hell's this guy in here, right? Like, they all got 100 guns in the room. Dude, bro, we used to leave the studio, and they would have like 100 motorcycles, entourage following them. Like, those dudes are legit in New York. Like, Juan D, shout out, those are real dudes. Like, people, the Rough Riders were like, they were about that smoke.
They were real about it,
They were real about that, and it was just like, you know, you had armed everybody, and I'm in there. I was like, no, that's the verse, and he's like, I can't, and I was like, why? And he goes, I used that rap one time for Jigga, and I was like, okay, and I was like, did it ever come out? And he's like, no, and I'm like, okay, and he's like, I can't disrespect Jigga like that. I'm like, bro, it's never gonna come out. Like, I was like, that's the hardest verse I've heard, like, ever you spit. And he's like, I know, and I'm like, I know. All right, I'm out. You know what I mean? So it was cool, like, you know, to be like a nobody in the room, and at least they gave me a little bit of a voice. And I remember Cassidy one time, I played him the song I did for Cartoon, and then he wanted that song.
Wow.
And I'm like, bro, it's already like on a mixtape. It was like on, I think, DJ Ski or something put it out. And it was like my first placement. He's like, yo, that beat's fire. I'm like, it's already out. Like, I'm playing, you know, and like, I remember he got like, they kicked us all in the studio, and Wah and D were like, you could hear them upset with him. And then like Cassidy came up to me later and like apologized. Hey, yo, sorry, man. Bro. I was like, oh, it's all good, bro. So that was my first, you know, hey, D, let me see your chain. It's like, you know, all platinum, like $150,000
platinum
Rolex.
chains.
Oh yeah, like bro, the heaviest thing you ever felt. Like they weren't white gold, they were platinum. You're
Platinum
like, oh.
gold, yeah.
So it was cool to see, but I was like, you saw the organization and like what was going on, and not to like discredit anything, but like as a business person, I was like observing, and I'm like, this isn't gonna last. Like this train is gonna fall apart. You know, everybody got money really fast. You know, kind of typical hip hop label story.
Shit,
You know, they have their little run, and obviously Swiss is like worth 150 million. And he was like the backbone that kind of kept it all together. So I just realized I never wanted to be a producer for hire. That's what I learned from the whole situation. I learned I wasn't good enough. I needed to come with more fire, be more original. At that side, I had never focused any side of like the engineering of beats. Just, you know, MPC and make beats and chop it. And it was always like, oh, some old 50-year-old white guy will make it sound good. That was like the mentality back then. You know, besides like Dr. Dre, nobody's music sounded that incredible. You know, you were on those samplers and stuff, everything kind of sounded good. We weren't like in today's era. So I'd never learned how to engineer. So I was like an idea person, but like my technical skills were, so like when I'd send beats, they weren't loud enough. They weren't, you know, the 808s weren't hitting hard enough, you know, where the rapper couldn't get the idea of like, yo, this is just a dope idea. Like, let's run with it. We'll finish it. Where I realized the guys that were landing all the placements, like perfectly mixed and mastered beats, loud, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just a process. So it was, you know, like everything happens for a reason. And it was like a really cool experience to be around one of the greatest rappers of all time.
Oh, yeah.
There was a time and point where they like even asked me, they're like, we kind of want you to be part, you know, X needs a good guy like you around him on a daily basis. And I'm like, oh, you mean like babysit a grown man? And I was like, bro, I got like a 6-figure job. Like, I ain't got time for that, you know? And they're like, he doesn't have any good people around him. And that was, you know, a long time ago, and you see how that ends up. So it was, you know, it was kind of like the wins of the hip hop industry. And they were like, I mean, they were like the most influential. I mean, them and Cash Money at the time were just like running rap.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so it was just a really cool experience to be around it. But it taught me a lot of things that I think has helped me today. You know what I mean? So it was, you know, shout out to all those guys, Swiss Beats, Wah, D, rest in peace, DMX, Neil the Matrix, that dude was cool. Jamie Weddle's first engineer I met out here. He was actually the engineer on those albums. I'm still friends with him today. He's got a bunch of Rough Riders plaques on his walls. He hit me up a couple weeks ago. He just heard Cabo Vibes. He says, man, you still doing it.
Really?
You're killing it. So those relationships, I got to meet, you know, the guys at Salt Mine. I was there. That's when Don was early in the game. All the rappers were starting to come through there. A lot of big historic records have been there that people don't know about. You know, Lollipop was done there. A lot of big songs were done. A lot of G-Unit records, stuff like that. So, you know, really my music kind of started happening. My rapping side was in Denver. And then, you know, I grew up, I had a girl, I had a career, but I just kept buying equipment, had a bedroom studio, and just, there still was this passion that I knew there was like, I knew it was in me. So I just kept doing it. And here I am still doing it.
Still doing it,
Still
man.
doing it, you know?
And, you know, you're doing a pretty damn good job, I should say.
I appreciate that. I mean, you know, I don't feel like we've really done much, to be honest. I think we've just kind of scratched the surface of what needs to be done. You know, it's easy to say like, okay, we've done some cool things for the city. You know, we had a plan, we put it into motion, and, you know, we're having wins. Developing our sound, developing images, learning how to release product. You know, there's just, each time you put something out, you really learn something new. So, you know, still learning, man.
Still learning, you know, and I want to ask you, how did you meet Dan G, the man himself? How did you get connected with him? Did you know him before Arizona, or how did you meet Dan G and link with him like that?
Shout out to my boy Peter Roy.
Peter Roy.
So Peter Roy is a really dope rapper. Him and I used to be in a group together. I used to produce with him. We were doing like sort of like electro hip hop. Basically, we were doing sort of like what LMFAO was doing. They just beat us to it.
Okay.
We were onto something big. We were called the Wig Mafia, and he decided he wanted to start rapping on like up tempo beats. So we were flipping stuff, and we had a good following. We were doing big shows here in Arizona. At the time, my brother became a famous DJ. You know, he became really famous. So we were helping write songs for them, and I switched paths and kind of went into the EDM world. Mm-hmm. So I started helping them songwrite. Everything was 2009, 10. I went to prison for like 8 months. Mm-hmm. And when I came out, he was like, yo, I got this idea. Mm-hmm. I think it was a little gimmicky, but it was like, it fit the time perfectly. And we were making shit. He could rap his ass off. And we were kind of trying to go the fast track, like one hit wonder route. Mm-hmm. And Dan G used to show up to the parties.
Really?
And Peter and Dan were really good friends. They used to do songs together. Mm-hmm. Dan and SoCal Trash and Peter Roy were like, you know, they were doing their thing on the underground. Mm-hmm. And I remember I threw a party at like one of my old houses, and he's like, yo, my boy Dan G, he's going to pull up. He got tons of girls, right? And yeah. Bro, we had this party, and I remember like, he pulls up, and like, there's like 40 girls in my house. And I'm like, who is this kid, right? A little youngster with a little mohawk and covered in tattoos. And I'm like, he's like, I told you. And so that was literally like the first time I met Dan. Wow. He was just a young, wild kid. And every time we would do shows with Wig Mafia, like, or we'd post a video or we'd do something, Dan was the first one to comment. He was always showing love. Mm-hmm. We sold out like a show. There used to be a club in the Old Town called the Roxy. Yeah. And we were bubbling, and we did a show, and we like sold it out. Like there was a line down the block, and like we put out a song, and we were like, we're instantly hot. Mm-hmm. Like we were doing shows at like Axis Radius.
Wow. Axis Radius.
We played like Global Dance Fest, and mm-hmm. we did a couple shows locally, and we just like kicked off from the first time. The phone just started ringing. We had a dope image, and we were doing something different. And so, boom, we were just running with it. And bro, Dan would be like the first one there. Like he'd be on stage turning up. Mm-hmm. And so it was cool because like he's never been a hater. He just always was so real. And he knew it wasn't his time to shine back then. Mm-hmm. He'd had a lot of success when he was younger. And then like he had his daughter, and you get out of high school, mm-hmm. and you're not around a million young kids, and kind of lost a little momentum. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of came back full circle. Me and Peter were doing some records. I owned a studio in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. Me and Slippy and a producer named Sluggo. DJ Slippy.
And still doing stuff down.
Slippy's killing it. Mm-hmm. Slippy's doing a great job. He's been, a big part of the scene for a long time. Super cool guy, super good friend. Mm-hmm. So we started a recording studio, mm-hmm. and that was really important to like my development. We had a bunch of really good producers that kept coming through the office. One of our partners, his name was DJ Sluggo. He's like a dubstep producer. Okay. And at the time, he was like kind of the best producer we'd been around. He had a very, futuristic sound. He was good at mixing, sound design, all these things. And they kept bringing all these DJs in that were like dope ass producers that were like making these records, and then they were out playing them and touring. And mm-hmm. he was touring like every weekend. Mm-hmm. And so like me and Slippy just became like students. Mm-hmm. And we'd get in there. And so I was doing a song with Peter, and Dan G pulled up. Mm-hmm. He's like, yo, I got something for the second verse. Hops in the studio, whacks the second verse. Mm-hmm. And we're like, cool. The song ended up being pretty dope. And we were kind of transitioning away from the Wig Mafia stuff. Mm-hmm. And Peter's like, yo, I just want to rap again. And so I was like, I kind of got sick of doing the EDM thing, but I learned so much through that time period. EDM producers are really good. Mm-hmm. And like learning how to produce EDM music taught me a lot. Mm-hmm. And so sound design, mixing, and all the things that I had never learned, mm-hmm. those guys are like way more advanced. So I started learning all that, and I was like, yo, I think I want to make hip hop again. Mm-hmm. And so I started making some hip hop beats again, and Peter was slapping a couple of them. Mm-hmm. And Dan hopped on a song. I called Mad Rich. They were doing a Sunday night thing with Tino Caccino back then. Mm-hmm. what was it?
Power 98.3.
Power 98.3. Shout out Tino Cucino, DJ Mad Rich. And Mad Rich had been a big fan of Peter Roy. So Peter was like in the battle circuit. He was signed. He'd done a lot of things. He was part of the Man Up Squad. He was like the only white boy in there. So he was crushing it. He was a real good rapper. And he had potential for like superstardom, you know what I mean? So I'd focused on him. That was kind of my first time. I wasn't probably a good enough producer at the time to really justify how good he was. But we were getting us in rooms and networking and doing things. And so Tino Cucino was doing the Sunday night show where they were playing records, and Mad Rich was DJing. So they had me and Peter and Dan G down to the station. So that's the first time I had a song played locally here no, actually DJ Fashion played a song, one of my own songs back in the day.
DJ Fashion.
I made my last rap song, I made a mixtape and Fashion mixed it.
Okay.
And I had a song they played on the radio kind of a lot. It was like I flipped like the Isley Brothers sample. It was like a weed song. And this big singer that from Denver was on it, and he sang like Neo. He was really good.
Wow.
So they used to play it on the radio station. So that was actually the first time I'd ever been on the radio here in Phoenix myself as an artist. And so fast forward, they invite us down to the radio station, and they're having an interview. And it was Peter and Dan kind of took over the interview, you know?
Really?
Like he was just going hard. And I remember like afterwards I said something to Peter, and I was like, Dan kind of like, and he goes, no, it's okay. He never done this before. Like Peter had been on press runs and all these things. He goes, nah, man, he's young and hungry. And like looking back, I didn't really realize like how hungry Dan really was. I was more focused on Peter. And, you know, at that time, you know, Peter wasn't as passionate as he'd been about music. And Dan was promoting it every day on Facebook and going in hard. And I was like, damn, he's going in. And then fast forward a little bit later, Peter wasn't really into making music anymore. You know, he just he was going to get married and start a family and stuff like that. And so I just, you know, I was making these beats, and Ant Banks is like my best friend. And I started playing him some of the stuff, and he was like, he's like, yo.
Ant Banks.
Yeah, shout out to Ant
Legendary
Banks.
producer, y'all.
Legendary. Millions and millions and millions of records.
Millions of records.
So he's kind of been my mentor, and he's been around my life for like 15 years. So he was like, bro, you're getting pretty good. Like, you might want to just find your own artist. And I was like, really? And he's like, nah, you can do this. He goes, but it doesn't work like I did, like where I just could land placements with everybody. He's like, you need to find your own artist. He goes, you're smart. He's like, you got the bread to, you know, to start a company and do it yourself. He's like, you can just manage. He goes, just be you and an artist. You can figure it out. Split it 50-50, just go in. And I was like, obviously, I respected his opinion, and he's never gonna feed me BS. Like he keeps it 100. And so I started looking for people, and shout out to Core, shout out to SoCal Trash, shout out to Dan. Dan did a song called Back Then. And I saw the video, and I was like, damn, he's hungry. Like I could just see it, and I listened to his lyrics, and for the first time, I had paid attention to Dan. I wasn't looking at him like he was my buddy's like younger brother type friend.
Party friend? Yeah.
I was not familiar with his earlier music. And to me, I think the most important thing for like an up and coming artist is they have to be genuine. And if you listen to their rap, if it doesn't
100%.
sound real, I'm not interested in it. And if you think about like all the great rappers, whether their story is real, you believe it. And if you don't believe it, and I think that's the difference between like local rappers that don't make it versus ones that do. Like when you hear the rap, whether they're fantasizing or whatever, it just sounds real.
Sounds real.
It sounds believable,
You could
sounds
tell.
real. And I could tell, I said, Dan's authentic. And I said, this is real. And he's hungry. And I can see. And the video was dope. The production was dope. The song was good. It was doing numbers. And so I hit him up. I hit up him and his brother. I'd gotten Dan a show before with Peter. And I got King Little G used to work with Dan. They knew each other from back in the day, and Dan was opening up for him. I missed the show, but I pulled up after the show, and King Little G had just dropped an album, and I said, "Yo, So I called Tino and Mad Rich. I'm like, "Dude, I got King Little G. Can we come down the station?" So I actually King Little G had never been on the radio, so I made the call. we went down to the Sunday night show again, got an interview with King Little G, came down with Dan. I didn't realize they had had some history. And so it was, after that, I realized, like, I think this guy might be the person. So I sat down, and I knew his brother, and his brother's a dope DJ. Shout out to Carmelo. He's still killing it. He's actually one of the better DJs in town. He really understands music. They're a very musical family.
Okay.
And Dan was always a dope performer, had tons of high energy. So I sat down with him. We actually went over to eat over here at the Twin Peaks. And I said, hey, I want to take a step back, and I'm really passionate about music still. I said, whatever you guys are doing, whoever producing your music is better than me. The sound is good. The style works. I said, let's try this for a year. I said, I'll put up a little bit of money. We'll try, I said I think at the time, being real, I think I said I was willing to invest $1,000 a month for 1 year.
Okay.
I said, so whether it's video shoots, whether it's paying to produce a song, promo, maybe getting us on a show, I'll make a 1 year commitment and let's see what we can come up with. And Carmelo he'd always been telling me, he's like, yo, my brother's got it, Brock. I'll never forget, we were at that King Little G show. He cornered me. He's like, I'm telling you, man, Dan's got it. He's got something different. And I was like, all right. And then, fast forward, I was like, okay. And we sat down, we talked, and we just been rocking ever since. We never stopped. You know what I mean? So that's like, it all came full circle. And, I saw that Dan had something different to offer. And I was like, we can develop a style and a sound. The fact that he's perfectly bilingual, to me made a lot of sense for an artist coming out of Arizona. He has something different. It's tough to copy someone that's fully authentic, can do it in both languages. There's not really many that can do it, and I said it's going to be harder to break through because it's not going to be the wave. But if we can crack through, you'll be in your own lane for the rest of your life. So that's kind of where it all came full circle, how we ended up meeting with each other.
Really cool, really cool. Shout out to Dan G, man. He's a great guy.
Dan G's the best. That's my little brother, man.
Yeah. And, you guys have, records with, some goats from here, just in the Southwest in general. MC Magic,
we got
Mi Mundo.
Great record.
Shout
out Magic.
Record.
MC Magic was here last night. We're working on, I'm working on a couple of things with him for his new project. And I'll keep it under wraps, but Dan and Magic are working on something really big right now.
Wow. Something really big with MC Magic. Y'all heard it.
Really big.
Really big.
Bigger than anything we've ever done.
And what better person to work with?
Magic's like unbelievable person, and he's the king of AZ, undisputed. I don't want to hear nothing differently.
All that talk, man.
It's not. No, it's not. If we're gonna talk Arizona hip hop, he's been doing it for he was big on the radio when I was a kid in Denver.
He was. MB Riders.
Bro, when I was in Denver, his song was non-stop on the radio. So I knew about Magic from day one. They would not stop. He would sell out show. He's huge in Denver. He still has an incredibly huge career. He's bigger than most of these artists that you think are big. Magic is currently significantly bigger than them. He has an awesome career. He sells out shows multiple times a month still. His tours are packed. His merch is crazy.
Nationally, too.
Nationally.
Everywhere in the country.
He sells out from Chicago to New York to California. Magic is a legend, and I don't think people give him enough props. He is the GOAT. If you've never been to his show, bro, he lines up afterwards and girls are screaming for him. You might as well think it's a Justin Bieber concert.
Wow.
It will blow your mind if anybody doesn't realize how big and how successful he is. Go to one of his shows, and it's just at the Super Show, there'll be a line for 5 hours waiting for pictures and autographs, thousands and thousands of people. You know what I mean? He's doing his thing. He's super humble. He's put me and Dan up on a lot of game, and he's still putting out dope music. He has a young fan base.
He does.
His fan base is 13 to 25. It's not. It's not the old fan base. He circled back around and got a whole new generation.
Wow.
And I've seen analytics. It will blow your mind how big it is.
Really?
I think any rapper in the game that's independent, minus him and Futuristic, there's nobody that's comparable. And I mean, he's, I don't know if Futuristic is as active as he once was. I kind of stay out of everybody's business. But those are the two that you should talk about. I mean, those guys I both know them very well personally. They're both great people. If there's anybody to copy and follow and ask advice for, those are the guys.
Gotcha.
I mean, they have been paying their bills with rap music for a long time.
Yeah.
And they pay them well.
Yeah.
Those dudes are doing it, and they're an inspiration. Anybody doing independent music, like if you're from Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to know how to do it, just take a look at. Futuristic posted something the other day, one of his albums, and it was like 100 and some million streams on an older album, like hundreds of millions of streams.
It's a lot of streams.
Hundreds of millions, so that's the people I respect from here, and I use as inspiration, like what they do right, what they, how do you make it independently, as a company. And both of them figured that out. Like, they're legends in this town.
Got you. Yeah, man. Shout out to all of them, man. Futuristic, MC Magic, man. Hopefully we can get Futuristic and MC Magic, on his way to active one of these days.
You should get them on there. They're both genuine people. They're not afraid to share knowledge. They're not afraid to put people on. They're not afraid to open up their platforms. They'll tell you the rights and wrongs. They'll tell you their... what they went through to make it. And they both have done it, for real. Like, every aspiring hip-hop artist, producer would dream to have their careers. Like, I don't care what nobody says. Just because they're not in the top 40 and on the Billboard charts and what people see as success, they're successful. And they're doing exactly what they love. They've never switched up for nobody. This is what they want to do. They get up, they make their own type of music, they create their own content. They don't have label BS to deal with. They make their own decisions, and they have genuine, real fan bases that support them. Huge, huge. Like, it's ridiculous how successful they are. So a lot of people talk about these artists doing things, and it's just like, if you're not talking about the people, it's like basketball. It's like those guys are in the NBA, right? And we're talking about guys that they make a little splash here for a couple of weeks, or they get on one show, or they get a little hype, and it's like, bro, that's like being first team all league in high school. It's like there's levels to this, and so you have to be pretty humble and just take each win as cool, and then it's like, okay, now you gotta do something bigger, and then you gotta do something bigger, and then, and then. Hopefully that opportunity comes, it kind of blows it wide open. And then, they both had those moments that blew it wide open, and then they've managed to run with it and keep it going, which I think is probably harder than just getting it open.
Got you, yeah. I want to talk about 2021. The Suns went to the finals that year.
Yes, shout out to Phoenix Suns.
Rally the Valley.
Yes.
Quite possibly one of the biggest records, to come out of Arizona. It was everywhere.
Everywhere.
Suns were playing it in the arena.
It was that was the intro to the game before tip-off.
Intro to the game.
So if you hadn't been to the NBA playoff game, it was the Jumbotron with Rally the Valley with the highlights of the team. And as soon as the video ended, the buzzer went off and it was tip-off. So it was on national TV, I think 23 times or something.
Incredible.
Performed the first playoff game.
Dan G performed.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Sean Martinez from the Phoenix Suns. Everybody involved with that. It was an awesome opportunity. We got to perform at we were originally scheduled to be game 5. And then the song started taking off. Javier Soto, shout out to Javier. He was actually the one that kind of broke it on the news. He started Rally the Valley. He started doing it live on the news, and then he reached out to us. He said, I want to be a part of this. And so he had us down, got the first interview, and then the whole city was, we hadn't been to the playoffs in 10 seasons. So the city was electric, and obviously we were coming out of COVID, so we did have some restrictions. But we were supposed to be game 5. They moved us to game 1. Now we're the first playoff game in 10 years, and the opening halftime performance as Dan G, and we got the theme song.
Yeah.
And it was really a magical moment. Dan had his daughter there. We're up in the owner's box. Alexis got to be there with us. We got to perform Cabo Vibes. Bootleg Kev was with us. He got to be a part of it. It was just a win for, Arizona people, and it kind of got me excited about basketball again. The Suns and the Nuggets hadn't been that good for a long time.
Yeah.
You deal with, you're in the music business, you kind of stop paying attention to sports, and it really made me feel like I was part of the team. I mean, now I have to root for the Suns over the Nuggets right now. Like, Phoenix is my hometown now. I'm the Rally the Valley guy.
Yeah.
It was a really fun experience. We recorded my home studio right here.
Yeah.
I remember getting the call from the Phoenix Suns, like literally standing right here, like where we're doing this interview.
Jersey's right here.
There's a Megawatts jersey.
Incredible.
Literally standing in here, we got the phone call from the head of marketing from the Suns, and he was like, green light, it's a go. Like, I don't care if anybody says no. I played it for DeAndre Ayton, I played it for Devin Booker, they love it. It's a go. Like, I don't care if anybody says no. I played it for DeAndre Ayton, I played it for Devin Booker, they love it. This is it. And so it was, like, every rapper dreams of being part of their NBA franchise, let alone, the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's no LA rapper making a theme song for the Lakers. The Miami Heat have never, DJ Khaled never made a song for the Heat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you think of all these things that, like, a rapper could do. And, Dan and I kind of willed that. We talked about it years ago. I said, one of the most important things for your career is the Suns need to be good. Like, the city needs to be popping. Basketball and hip hop go hand in hand, just like I said when I was a kid. We played ball, we listened to rap music. You played with all-star games and people from other sides of the country. Back then, it moved a little slower. You didn't get the music as fast, and people were like, oh, this is what we listen to where we're from, this is what we listen, and you got turned on to new music. So now it's like, fast forward as adults, and now here we are back with hip hop and basketball, and it was the radio stations. Shout out to Crisco Kid, he was one of the first. Power 98. He was behind it heavy. DJ Automatic, Tino Cucino, and then everybody started following suit. We started getting booked to do every show. I think we ended up Dan did like 13. National television interviews from like ESPN Mexico. He was doing language,
Telemundo.
He did Telemundo. Yeah. He did like the Adidas soccer channel in like Spain.
Wow.
Being bilingual, like to be able to, and it became a cultural thing for for a young immigrant kid. He came here like in his mom's stomach illegally to be born in America, to be like a Suns fan, to like making the song for your city. When we were like on top again, it was just a huge experience, and it was like great for our career. It gave Dan a ton of exposure. I don't think, people have their opinions or whatever. There was a lot of red tape.
Lots of talk, about the song and
a lot of people, the only person they called was me. So the Phoenix Suns dialed my phone, and they said, we think we're going to make a run to the playoffs. We don't have the budget for Little Baby. We want to use someone local. Dan and I did a show in Denver at Mile High Stadium a couple summers before. Sean Martinez, who works for the Suns, was at the show.
Wow.
And so what a lot of people don't know is he used to work for the Pistons. He was a huge DJ. Shout out DJ Tribal Touch. He was a huge DJ in Denver. My first mixtape I ever got from a DJ was at a rave party by DJ Tribal Touch. He was the biggest like underground DJ in Denver.
Wow.
And then he got into pro sports, and when we dropped Like Button, which was our first single, I sent out it to every DJ I knew. And I got an email back from him, and he's like, hey, B, what's up? And he's like, this song's dope. Can you send me the instrumental? And I said, yeah. So what people don't know is when the teams dribble up, they play beats. A lot of teams just play instrumentals. So the Like Button was played at the Pistons games for like 3 years.
Wow, okay.
And so that, and then fast forward, he saw Dan perform. We did a show with like Future, Gucci Mane. It was like Tiesto, Millennium, like all these huge artists. At the Broncos Stadium. Shout out to Ha, shout out to the Global Dance Fest. It was just a huge party. Event. It was a huge event, and we got to be on one of the big stages. And he saw him. He's like, dude, that kid's a beast. So when he asked me, he said, "You think you could come up with something?" And I'm like, well, yeah. And I'm like, but it's got to be Dan G. Like, you know, I don't think he knew like our situation. And he was new to town. This was his first year with the Suns. And so I said, yeah. I said, what are we doing? And he's like, well, we're going to come with this new marketing campaign called Rally the Valley. Say less.
Yeah.
And so I'd worked on a couple beats. I had like 2 or 3 in mind. And I played it for a few people and just randoms that I kind of knew and friends and acquaintances. And I just played them instrumentals, didn't tell them. And I played Dan, I think the first one. He was like, nah, that's not it. And I was kind of like trying to force him. I think it was kind of big arena sounding. And then I had this drill track. It was very dark and aggressive.
Drill track. A lot of y'all don't know that.
Oh, if you hear the
Valley
go listen to the instrumental. Like, don't be a hater and just be mad that you weren't the rapper. But like, literally, just go listen to the instrumental. It was very modern, dope drill track. Like the beat actually in my phone is still named Drill.
Wow.
Like it was, boom, boom, boom. You know, and so as soon as I played it, Dan was like, and he said, Rally. I said, that's it. And
that's it.
Boom, we had to include every player on the team and we had to drop it all through. And then actually, originally it was Rally Por El Valley. He said, Rally Por El Valley. And we sent it, they loved it. And then they're like, well, it's actually Rally the Valley. So we actually had to change it. And then we had to make a few little alterations. And we sent it, and they played it for DA, and they played it for Booker, and I think one other player. And they were like, they knew it was like new and hot. They're like, this is like some drill shit.
Drill shit, yeah.
Right, and you know, rewind back to March of 2021, like Pop Smoke was just kind of trending. So, you know, it was like new and fresh, and not everyone was dropping drill. So DeAndre's the youngest, newest kid. They loved it, and so it became the anthem, and it just, you know, we ran with it.
And then Cabo Vibes is also going crazy at this time.
We had just dropped Cabo Vibes about the same time.
That's everywhere too. That's a heavy record, Latin wise.
It was being played. I mean, all the
everywhere.
Clubs, they still play it every night.
They still play it.
You could if you go to Jaguars tonight, if you go to Old Town Scottsdale, they're playing it. They play it a lot of cities. But the Suns had heard that song too. And that was, once they realized we had like a family-friendly song that didn't cuss, they knew like we were capable of delivering. So when they booked us to do the halftime, it was Danji and Alexis.
Cabo Vibes and Rally, it's like 2 songs. Like you guys, 2 songs going crazy at that time.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, to play Cabo Vibes at a halftime show during the NBA playoffs as a local single, and then it was a really good experience. And what was even more rewarding is, one, Alexis and Dan, they've crashed on this couch a million times, and we recorded and seen the struggle of being an independent artist and working jobs and all that. And to see, I mean, we go to those parties and, Dan would have to get up and go work the next day. I'd have to get up, we were all grinding. And it was just a really cool experience to see like that happen in real time. And then what was even more cool was like when you actually hear it in the stadium, like the amount of time from like me making demos to like it slapped in the arena. It wasn't like it, and I'm not going to discredit, but there's been some other local artists that have performed at the Suns, and I've been to them, and like the music didn't sound very good in those huge speakers. You're right, it might sound good in your laptop, but to make something that's so professionally mixed and mastered and engineered and composed that like it's slapping in the arena like Still Dre, and you're like if you even hear the phone videos, like it sounds perfectly clear. And for me, like, you're always nervous, like, like, is this gonna sound good in like the biggest sound systems in the world? And like for it just to be knocking in the arena and everybody rocking out, like, for me as a producer, like I got probably more thrill out of like, bro, you can hear the vocals sound clean and the bass is hitting right and it's loud and it's clean and it, whatever song they play next isn't gonna sound quite as, it was a really rewarding experience, and it was it motivated us a lot. You know what I mean? It got us kind of a shot in the arm. As an artist or a producer, you have to have some accolades that kind of keep you motivated. This is a tough business. You get the door slammed in your face 100 times for every yes. So that was it was really cool. Shout out to the Phoenix Suns. Still have a wonderful relationship with them. probably some really cool things happening in the future with those guys.
Oh, for sure.
So that's exciting.
For sure. I don't think there's been, I mean, no disrespect, man, you know, but there hasn't been an artist out here, you know, that's done that, that's made it to that level.
Well, you know, minus Magic and Futuristic, I mean, we have to be realistic. You know, you had a few people that had some opportunities, some label opportunities, and unfortunately, you know, they didn't have the success I think everybody thought they would. Everybody thinks you sign a record deal and then you become a household name. Nobody from Phoenix has done that. Like, we don't have anybody that's had a Billboard #1 or a, you know, like a nationally known, like, major single. Like MC Magic, you know, like, has a couple songs that are regionally and in certain markets do really well, and they have catapulted his career where you can go and there's 10,000 people and they sing it word for word, but it's not like it is just, you know, a known song everywhere. And I think Futuristic is the same thing. Like, they've had wonderful careers and they're awesome independently, but nobody's had like a platinum single, you know, where it's like, oh, you know, and, you know, there's no Hot in Here. There's no, you know, like, you know, there's no Chingy right there. Or like, you know, Bay Area's had their art. You know, there's, you know, Paul Wall and Mike. I mean, those guys had Baby Bash. Like, those guys had platinum songs. Like, nobody from Phoenix has done that yet. You know, so we're all, someone's got to do that first. I say right now, minus the rap stuff, like, Alexis is doing a great job. You know, it's a hard grind. He's had some really successful records. He streams well. He's ungodly talented. He absolutely nailed the Cabo Vibes song. It was cool. He never performed anything that big. So it was crazy. Like, Dan's like wrapping his arm around him. Dan's a pro. And, you know, I think going back to that situation, I don't think there was probably another rapper in the city, minus maybe Futuristic, Magic, or like probably Sincerely Collins, that was capable of grabbing a microphone and controlling 18,000 people. It's one thing to do, you know, a local show and these, you know, these one-off nights or these, you know, these little shows that we all do. But, you know, to be played in front of,
I mean,
it's just, and, you know, it was kind of funny because Alexis was so nervous, and you know, we just took it for granted that, like, we've done so many shows, like, everybody's like, you and Dan, your shows are so good, and I'm like, bro, we've never practiced once. We never practiced once. We've never rehearsed a show. I started DJing for him. We did a big show in Denver at a big festival, and the first couple shows, like, we just did what we did, and I said, all right, well, for this to work, I got to be your DJ. And he's okay. And so we ran through sound check, and I obviously know every word to his songs. I produce all the songs and mix them, and so I know every word. And I was like, I'll just do your hypes. I used to be a rapper. I know how to do. It's really easy to say one word, cut the beat, like. So it gives him time to breathe. I know what a rapper would want. Dan was such a good performer. I never wanted a hype man on stage with him. I don't like anybody on the stage. He's a rock star. He can control the stage by himself. And so, you know, we just done it, and we took that for granted. We've done so many shows, and, you know, Alexis was, I look over, are you okay, bro? Bootleg was like, you want a shot? We're like, we ran over, like, right before we ran over. So, and dude, and Dan was like, you got this, you know? And I was just like, bro, it's easy. Just tuck your left arm, because you get nervous, your arm starts moving. Just tuck that left arm, bro. Sing your heart out. Dan's like, you got this. Kev hyped him up, and boom, as soon as, you know, you could tell the nerves, and then boom, he just killed it. Like, and now if you go to an Alexis show, man, he's awesome live. He talks to the crowd. We just did the Super Show. Shout out to Mad Rich. You know, the Arizona Super Show, we just did that last month.
Big show.
Huge show.
Huge show in Arizona.
And it's like amazing. Like, Alexis is so good with the crowd now. He talks to the crowd. We had a sound problem, like somehow like the sound crashed at the end of Cabo Vibes, and some other song started playing, and I'm like turning off. I'm like, somebody had plugged in another lap, something crazy, and Alexis didn't phase him, and we cut the music, and he sang Cabo Vibes a cappella. And just like it was meant to be, and the crowd was loving it, and it's, you know, it's, to me, like, that's exciting to see, like, you know, you're in front of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people, and the sound crashes, and the sounded like a blender to us, and we're like, Dan's like looking at me, and Alexis, like, he just like in, and he just goes right into it a cappella, and the crowd's singing it, and we're hyping, and it was just like, you know, to see where we were 2 years ago, and then for, to see his crowd control now and him to be able to rock what he's doing, I think, these kids have tremendous like futures ahead of them, and it's cool to be a part of it, man. Like, it's all about their success. Like, if they win, I win. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about me.
Exactly. And you created these records. I mean, we were talking off camera. The word timeless comes to mind. Cabo Vibes, Rally the Valley. It's still being played. It's still being played.
I mean, those will be parts of Arizona hip hop history.
Forever.
So young kids in the Valley, everybody's gonna remember those times. That was like. And that's the cool thing about music. Like, everybody's going to have their time, and we all remember certain parts of our life, and songs go with that time. And, if you were a basketball fan in the Valley and you were, like, in grade school, people forget, like, what that meant to, like, a 13-year-old Mexican kid from the West Side to, like, his parents came in the same situation, and now it's, like, one of them is representing like the Suns, which is the biggest sports team out here. Like, I mean, that's our, and so, it's not about like someone just doing it, but it's like for people to be able to look up to them and be like inspired by that. And, it's like, if Dan can do it, like, so can you, like, so those kind of things, and, for Dan to have his daughter there and get to see like her dad succeed on that kind of level, it was just like, those are cool things to be a part of.
Got you. Yeah. And before I wrap it up, man, I want to ask you, why do you think that there's so much, bickering, and why is there so much quote unquote drama going on in, the local scene, whatever pocket it may be? Why is there a problem with Arizona music, Arizona hip hop in general? Why do you think that is, and what does Arizona need to do to kind of get out of there and kind of, take a better step forward?
I think every city has that problem.
Okay.
I think if you go talk to the rappers in LA, they'll say LA radio doesn't play enough of our songs. I think if you talk to the rappers in New York, they're going to say the radio doesn't play our songs. I'm sure there's rappers in New York that are really hot in their city that are not being played on, Hot 97, Power 105, right? I'm in Real 92.3 in LA. There's rappers that are really hot that are probably making $1 million a year independently, and their songs are not on the radio. Rap is a solo sport. It is not a team effort. It will never be a team effort. Everybody's going to have their opinion of what type of style and sound is supposed to be popular. If you talk to 10 local rappers here in Phoenix, they will tell you this is what should be hot. I think most of them are wrong. That's why nobody's had any success. You're talking hip hop just turned 50, and nobody's had a platinum record in 50 years. So nobody's made a hit record out of here. I think people follow trends. I don't think anybody's done anything overly original. Minus MC Magic. He had original hits out of here, and look what had happened. He got successful. Futuristic did his own style, and for people not to give those kind of guys props, it's like, just not might be your cup of tea, but it's winning. And I think the local scene rappers are angry people. Their ego they're fragile. They're ego driven. Everybody's caught up in hype and fame and want to be well known. They get a little bit of success. They probably weren't very popular in high school. They probably never got any pussy. They never, you know what I mean? Like they never played on a state championship team. They never went to college and played. They've never been. So like they get 25 people to like them and tell them they're the hottest, and everyone thinks they're the hottest. They're not. I don't think there'll ever be unity in a scene. Like whatever clique or camp blows up, they're going to blow up, and then everybody's going to want to jump onto them and ride their coattails. And if they don't accept you, they're going to hate on them.
Yeah.
That will never change.
Revolving circle.
The barbershop talk and gossip of hip hop is kind of what keeps it relevant. I think the sound here is not original. I think the quality of the music, songwriting, producing is not that good. Otherwise, people will be doing better.
Yep.
I mean, there's some talented people.
There is.
I think images are pretty crappy. I don't think anybody puts any money behind their projects. The market's overly saturated. 160,000 songs a day come out on Spotify. If you have no budget, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
If you don't have a marketing plan, if you don't have a rollout, if you don't spend some type of money on promotion, you're not going to have any success. So there's just going to be a bunch of local rappers, like the Arizona Hip Hop Fest. I think we're at year 11. It's a wonderful event. Shout out to Justice.
Yep.
But in 11 years, nobody's got a record deal. Nobody's got signed. Nobody's made a commercially successful record. None of these rappers have cultivated a fan base.
Yeah.
They just rap for other rappers, and then they get hated on. Well, of course, like, where are the kids from the suburbs? Are they listening to your music? Do you have, people hate on Dan because he has fans. Alexis has fans. Magic has fans. Futuristic has fans. These people have not figured out a way to get the junior high kids and the high school kids. Like, that's how you become popular.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, there's millions of people in this city, and, until you become popular in your school systems, and the junior high kids, like, I want to be like, until that somebody gets those fans, like, they're just a bunch of 20-somethings, hanging out at the club, like
30-somethings too.
20-something, 30-somethings just hanging out at the club and talk about I'm the hottest. And it's like, bro, you have 83 listeners on your Spotify. You're not the hottest. Like, it's hard. It's a very competitive, and I don't see anybody, shout out to Desert Baby. He has a dope image. He had a great work ethic. Unfortunately, he's locked up. We'll always hold him down.
Shout out Desert Baby.
Alexis has got it. Dan G's got it. Merkham's is doing a great job right now. I think.
Salute Merkham's.
He's an unbelievable talent. I try to stay out of it. There's a few rappers I like. I sometimes reach out to them about maybe working with them or doing a feature or something like that. But I just stay in my lane. Me and Dan have got unfinished business, and we're just going to keep flooding them with big records. Shout out Cap G. We got a big record out right now called Mehi.
Mehi going crazy.
Well, it's doing well. I mean, they're playing it in, all the strip clubs in New York, Atlanta, Miami. So we're having success outside of Phoenix, which I think more people need to do that.
Yeah.
I think they need to focus on their own career and not worry about what other people think.
Exactly.
And I think they need to worry about other markets, because Phoenix is a big market and other cities look to us and think we're cool. And I think people don't realize if you're from Phoenix, they just, like in Denver, we think Phoenix is bigger than Denver.
Yeah.
Right. We look to Phoenix like if you're popping in. So all my people back in Denver, when they saw me doing Rally the Valley and Dan and all that, like my phone was blowing up. Like, y'all are killing it. Like, it means more to be blowing up in Phoenix than it does in Denver. And I think other cities think about us that way. We just don't think about ourselves that way. So I think people need to just worry about that. Create something original. I don't hear a lot of fun music. This is kind of a party town.
Yeah.
I think people should make more fun music.
Fun music, y'all.
I mean, this is a party town. Like, this is, everybody thinks they're tough and gangster, and sure, that part of Phoenix is here, but I don't see this is in LA. We don't have no kingpins here. We don't have, I think the tough guy rap thing is kind of dated. So I think people, everybody just wants to stir up a little controversy, and they don't have any careers. They don't have any shows. They've never made any money. They never, so.
Yeah, man. Shit, man. That's a lot of gems right there, man. Megawatts, I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Super dope conversation, if I must say so myself.
Cool. Shout out to Rafi.
Rafi, man.
Shout out to Rafi. That's a big...
doing more numbers than any record right now.
That came from the Suns. So, like, once we did the song from the Suns, we got the call. I think we're on the radio 150 times a day right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you start doing things, you get opportunities.
Yeah.
These are part of the culture of the city that will forever be part of the city. It was fun to produce the record. It was cool to to redo a classic and make it work.
Oh yeah.
Hear it on the radio every day.
Little kids are saying it.
Everybody. It's huge. It's way bigger than people realize.
Yeah, man. I mean, Rafi. Turn on your radio.
It's on the radio.
You can't
miss it.
You'll hear it.
It's on there more than The Weeknd, bro.
Multiple radio stations.
Every radio station.
Everywhere. I hear it at least 3 times a day.
It's if you're,
in the car.
A couple million people still listen a day in Phoenix listen to the radio.
Oh yeah,
so
it's still big.
Shout out to Rafi, shout out to Bill, shout out to Mad Rich, EC. It was fun to be part of it. They're super cool guys. It's what happens when you start moving. You get opportunities to do some things different. Some bigger companies have reached out to us now. Some national campaigns. Obviously, I didn't think we'd be making jingles, but if the money's right and it fits in our lane, we'll do it.
The money's right. Hell yeah.
We're creative people. They're asking for our brain and our ideas, and if it works, more power to it.
Run me the check.
Run me the check.
Run the check. Hell yeah. Lots of gems, man. Lots of game in this one, man. Megawatts, the boss in the building, man. This is AZ2 Active. This is your boy Staz, the Italian Stallion, a.k.a. ESPN Staz, because I'm bringing it to you like a highlight, you feel me? This is AZWay2 Active once again, the definition of active, man. Megawatts in the building, and we out.